Hello and welcome to my GW24 watch list. Starting off with the keepers, Ederson falls a bit simply because, with the double game week gone, he becomes a less interesting option, and City still somehow managed to concede every game. He doesn't make saves, so he's not a great option. Alisson, Liverpool still shaky defensively, even though they played well against Everton. I wouldn't trust Alisson, especially not for that price. Pope falls because, with Bournemouth out of the way and the next three fixtures being Liverpool, then a blank, then Man City away, just don't go for Pope. Lloris still injured. Kepa, in my opinion, still the best option. He has a juicy game against Southampton. He plays in game week 25 and the potential blank game week, game week 28. So just get Kepa in and you're set. Ramsdale, Arsenal have fallen off a bit, but I still think he is a good option if you don't already own three Arsenal players, that is. Pickford gets a small rise because I think the fixtures are decent, and the fact that he plays in double game week 28 makes him an okay option to go for. I personally just prefer Kepa, but if you really want to save that 0.2 million and you want to maybe be a bit different, he could have a monster haul in these next 5 game weeks. The games against Leeds and Villa and Brentford are at home, so we might see more Sean Dyche masterclass 1-0s, and he's bound to get some saves and bonus points if he does get the clean sheet. So Pickford at 4.4 million, okay option, I would say. Jose Sa, simply a worse version of Pickford, I think, because he won't play game week 28. His fixtures are a bit more difficult and he is more expensive. The rest in this price bracket just aren't worth considering, at least not currently. And in the 3.9 to 4 million brackets, we have Forster, still an okay option if you really want a budget pick. Although Spurs, just when I thought they turned the corner and kept 2 clean sheets in a row, they were absolutely demolished by Leicester. So not a great defense, but then again, Pickford, Sa, and all these other keepers aren't very convincing teams defensively. So that's it for the goalkeepers. Moving on to the defenders. Trippier unfortunately falls with Liverpool, then a blank, then City away. I don't need to explain why he falls on the watch list. Laporte, Pep Roulette, need I say more? Trent and Robertson, they have Newcastle away up next, so I wouldn't be going for them. After that, they will definitely get a rise because they have a double, and it's always a good idea to get double game players. Perisic, rotation threat due to him being involved in the Champions League, and even if he plays, Spurs are just poor. Thiago Silva and James. I'm worried about Thiago Silva's chances of starting against Southampton. I think he could be rotated here, and honestly, I'm not willing to risk it. Otherwise, he would be higher on this list. James, I'm even more worried. I don't think he will start against Southampton. If we knew he would be starting, or for example, if Chelsea go out of the Champions League, he is definitely on my radar because we all know how good he can be. And Chelsea have some decent fixtures, so want to keep an eye out on. In the 4.6 to 5.2 million bracket at the top, we still have Gabriel and Zinchenko, even though Arsenal have been a bit leaky lately, with Villa away, then a double, then Bournemouth at home, Fulham, Palace. I think it's a no-brainer if you don't have 3 Arsenal assets already and are in search of a defender. I think one of those 2 are excellent options. White, Uh, we've seen him rotated out for Tomiyasu. That's why he isn't in the same bracket as Gabriel and Zinchenko. Uh, but with Tomiyasu's horror show against Manchester City, you could take a risk and just hope he plays every game up until the end of the season or up until the time you wildcard, depending, of course, on your team and on the fact if you already have the wildcard or if you've already used the wildcard, sorry. But yeah, still a good option. I think he's not going to miss many games, especially after Tomiyasu's performance. Okay, look, City have great games upcoming, but the threat of rotation is too high. If you're going for an option from Manchester City, I still believe Ake is more nailed than the likes of Akanji and Laporte. But Yashil is an interesting one because I think he is the least likely to, or the most likely to start of the options, Chelsea options I've listed here. And yeah, due to the fact that he is not registered for the Champions League at all, it might be an indication of him being pretty nailed in the league. But then again, we have to see, especially now against Southampton. If, for example, Chalobah comes in or Koulibaly, then he becomes a problem for your team. But I think he is an okay option, uh, being 0.5 million cheaper than Thiago Silva and 0.8 million cheaper than James. And in my opinion, the most likely one to start against Southampton, he's an okay option. Shaw, Varane, yeah, with the fixtures being as awful as they are, they have to they can't be higher than this. Dyer, Spurs are just too weak defensively, as already mentioned. Duncan Stupinian also just simply due to the blank game week, they can't be higher on the list. Akanji, he's here because I believe Ake is a superior option, as I've said already. Me, I might be a bit harsh on me. Maybe he deserves to be in the same bracket as Duncan Stupinian and the Manchester United guys and Dyer and Akanji, because Brentford have actually been so good. They've been amazing. What Thomas Frank is doing with them is really impressive. And with Palace at home next, then unfortunately blank, but then Fulham at home and then a double game week. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to move him up just a little bit. I still wouldn't be going for him due to the blank game week, of course. If you have him and you have adequate cover, I would keep him. And if you don't have him and you have someone to cover for game week 25, he is still a option to consider at least. Cresswell and all the other West Ham defenders and defenders from teams like I don't know, Leicester and Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, etc. All the other defenders that are not on the list are just not worth considering, in my opinion. Even, for example, Palace defenders. We know they have a double game week, but I just don't trust them at all. In the 3.9 to 4.5 million bracket, Lewis gets a downgrade. Played 0 minutes in the double game week. I mean, I was convinced he would get at least one of those games, if not both. I thought he pretty much had Pep's trust to be a starter now, and it's not like he's done anything wrong. It's not like he had a shocking performance or something. Maybe Pep's saving him for the Champions League. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, simply due to the rotation, he can't be put higher than this. Although at least with Lewis, you're paying 3.9 million, and he seems to not come on when he doesn't start in the first 11. So that's a bonus. Tarkovsky up next for 4.2 million. Definitely an option to consider with Sean Dyche making Burnley a more defensively resolute unit, he's an okay option. Kilman, yeah, it's Bournemouth up next, then a double game week, so you could go for him if you need a defender for the short term. After that, it's Spurs and Newcastle, and then it's a potential blank. So for the short term, he's okay. Mings, Arsenal at home up next. But if you're getting Mings, I doubt it that you're playing him immediately. He's just a option for game week 25, in which he plays Everton, and game week 28, where he has Bournemouth at home. So to cover those blank game weeks, he's an okay option. Botman up next. Yeah, same reasons as Trippier, gets downgrade due to the fixtures. Bueno, the situation with Bueno is interesting. I have him in my team, and I think he will actually start against Bournemouth and then get at least one game in the double game week, because Ait Nouri is just not good enough defensively. He's just a very poor defender. And I think Bueno will come back into the starting 11 this week against Bournemouth and keep his place. Although, yeah, he can't be put higher on this list because it's just speculation. Ait Nouri might continue to play, and therefore Bueno could become a useless option. If you have him, hold him at least for another week and reassess when the double game week comes. If you don't have him, just get Kilman. Patterson is back from his injury, but not yet ready to start, unfortunately. Again, for the double, just wait and see what Sean Dyche says in his press conference, but I don't think it will be anything helpful. So if you have him and you need an option for game week 25, it's going to be a tough decision to make, because Sean Dyche will probably say he's touch and go. So yeah, that's it for the defenders. Moving on to the midfielders, KDB stands at the top of the premium brackets, even though he might get rotated in the next two games. I mean, it's Forest and then Bournemouth, so with Champions League coming up, I'd be surprised if he started both of those games, to be honest. But it's possible. So yeah, he's a good option. Not higher, simply because I believe Mahrez is still a superior option. Bruno falls down a bit on the watch list. With the blank upcoming, it's logical. Salah, Newcastle away next, and I don't think he will do well. So not yet. It's not yet time for the Egyptian king. But in game week 25, he's an option to consider, maybe even for the captaincy if you want to go really differential. Son and Sterling, yeah, not options for a long time now. Saka still remains at the top of the 7.3 to 8.3 million bracket. We've seen his returns in the double game week, even when Arsenal only scored 2 goals in 2 games and weren't playing particularly well, to be honest. We've seen he can pull off something out of nothing, and he's on penalties, and yeah, just excellent option, Saka. Mahrez, good option. Rotation fears definitely in the next 2 games, because you'd presume he starts both the Champions League games unless they win with an insane goal margin in the first leg, which I don't think they will. So yeah, rotation risks, but his ceiling is higher than De Bruyne's, in my opinion. Madison gets a small rise simply because he is Mr. Leicester. It's no coincidence that they scored 4 goals in back-to-back games when he started again in a very long time. The reason he's not higher on the list is just the fixtures. So it's United away, then Arsenal at home, then Southampton away, and then Chelsea at home. So maybe you can consider him in 2 game weeks time. when he plays Southampton. Gakpo gets a small rise. Uh, yeah, the double game week is coming up, and that makes him a more appealing option. Kulusevski, not an option. Mount seems to have lost his place in the starting 11 to Mudryk, so not really an option to consider. 5.3 to 7.2 million bracket, we have Odegaard at the top. He was disappointing in the double, but I still think he is a good option. Rashford gets a small fall, due to the double game week, but still I think he's such a good option that if you don't have him, you might even consider just getting him in for game week 24 and then playing one of your bench players in 25 if you do have that option, or even taking a hit in game week 25 because he could do real damage against Leicester. And after that, Liverpool, Southampton, yeah, those fixtures scream Rashford goals to me. So still a great option, even though he has a blank in 25. Martinelli, yeah, still okay, but it's looking like it's only a matter of time before Trossard actually starts for them on the left wing. So until that happens, Martinelli is still a good option, but there are doubts. There are definite doubts with him. Almiron, um, fixtures make him a less appealing option. Mudryk and Madueke. I'm still not convinced about Chelsea's attack. That's the problem. The thing with Madueke is he's 5.5 million, so that's interesting. But again, the rotation fear is there with Ziyech. Mudryk seems to be an electric player, and I think he just needs one good performance, and he will start producing. The fixtures are good, but Chelsea these days don't score more than one goal a game. Unfortunately, that's the reality of things. If you're going for a Chelsea option, just go for Felix, because he looks the most nailed and the most involved in the kind of areas you want your FPL assets to be involved. But for a punt, Mudryk and Madueke, perhaps you can consider them. Harrison falls. I just think Somerville is a more interesting option, and Nonto especially at lower prices. Ward-Prowse, seems to be playing a bit deeper now with the new system that Southampton have, and Southampton are just shambolic. In the 4.2 to 5.2 million bracket, March and Mitoma get small downgrades due to the blank game week, but after that you'll want Brighton assets for the double. So I expect them to get a rise immediately after the blank game week. Pereira, okay option for the bench for the fifth midfielder spot. Bailey as well, a good option, especially because he plays in game week 25 and game week 28, and he has some decent fixtures in them, and he seems to be just a first choice starting 11 player for Emery. So yeah, Bailey is definitely interesting. And Somerville, if you really want to go for Leeds options, at 4.2 million, you're not risking much. So I think Somerville is an okay option. Really should have done better against Manchester United. Should have scored because he had some great chances, but he's a good player. He's still young, so I presume that's the reason for his maybe lack of clinical edge in the final third, and his decision making sometimes maybe being a bit off. But he's an electric player. He's a fast player and an interesting option. And the Silva Falls, yeah, there's a blank game week soon, and he's not. He's a rotational option. The price is very tempting, especially if you don't have to play him, but I would go for some other options currently. That's it for the midfielders. And rounding off the watch list with the forwards. In the premium brackets, things pretty much remain the same. Haaland and Kane, amazing options. Darwin, interesting due to the double game week that's fast approaching. I would wait a week and see how things transpire against Newcastle and in the Champions League, because there might be some rotation for Darwin. Although between him and Gakpo, I think he is less likely to be rotated because he's the pure number 9, let's call it that way, the only one they have currently. But with Jota coming back, things might change. So not a great option, but one we should consider with the upcoming double game week. Havertz and Vardy, not options we should consider. Nketiah, amazing. Still, until Gabriel Jesus comes back, if you're in need of a striker and you don't have a third Arsenal option, just get Nketiah. Mitrovic gets a small downgrade, simply due to the fixtures. I think Brighton away, Wolves at home, Brentford away, and then Arsenal at home, then a potential blank, in game week 28 aren't the best games for Mitrovic. Look, he's been Fulham's main man the whole season, and Fulham are still playing well, but he's just not getting the returns. It's bound to happen sooner or later, but sometimes when a player is out of form a bit, it's good to dump them if the fixtures aren't looking amazing. And for Mitrovic, they aren't looking particularly great. Felix, on the other hand, has better fixtures than Mitrovic and seems to be the most nailed Chelsea attacking option, and seems to be the best Chelsea attacking option, what's most important, because things just happen when he's on the ball and when he's making runs into the box and in combining with players around the box. He's just a good player. And yeah, if not for the Champions League doubt about rotation, although I think he will play, he's just too important at this moment in time, and it's a loan anyway, so they have limited time to use him, and I think they will milk him for all his worth while he's still there. And yeah, maybe not the most clinical player in the world, but good fixtures, and if you want to take a punt on a striker, Felix is a good one. The rest, Tony, yeah, blank, upcoming. Wilson, also downgraded, blank, upcoming. Bamford, there are better options. Iheanacho, awful fixtures in the short term, although he has been amazing, but there's always that threat of rotation with Vardy and Daka. Now, I'm not quite sure about their injury situations, but it's kind of a flashback from last year, I think, or the year before that, when Iheanacho was just on fire, and then the new season started and he couldn't get a look in. So yeah, I don't think Rodgers is his biggest fan, but while he is performing like this, he's almost undroppable. So maybe after the fixtures clear up in 2 or 3 weeks, we might really consider Iheanacho as an option. Watkins, he's been on great form, but again, it's Arsenal up next. So I wouldn't go there, not just yet. But when the double game week or when the blank game week comes around, his run of fixtures is actually pretty good. So we'll see in a week where I put him. Weghorst, not an option. Nonto, I think he is a better option than Bamford, although Bamford does play more centrally and I believe is on penalties. Nonto is much more affordable and seems to be just a more exciting player. Now, of course, being exciting and being good on the eye test doesn't necessarily translate into more FPL points, but he's a good option to go for if you're looking for a budget striker. And Bomo, yeah, the blank is there. The rest, Onuachu, Johnson, Solanke, and Cunha are not options I would really consider. Ferguson, yeah, the blank is fast approaching, so I mean he is 4.6 million, so I'm not sure. The only problem is I'm not sure if he starts against Fulham due to the injury concerns lately. So I would hold on and just see how the situation transpires, and then after the blank game week, I would think about getting him in. If you're really short on funds and if you're making a move that requires you to get a very cheap forward, I would go for Ferguson. If you can't stretch to Nonto, I would go for Ferguson. Greenwood, yeah, simply. If you really need the money, you can go for Greenwood, but don't expect much. You're lucky if he gets a one-pointer with all the options Leeds have in attack currently. I think he's well well behind in the pecking order currently. So yeah, that's it for the watch list. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, have a good game week. And I'll be putting out a new video next week as usual. So yeah, bye. Thanks for watching.